let's talk a little bit about your upcoming preview for the 2013 season, which I think is very diverse. Wow. I have to tell you, just kind of looking at what you have happening, there's not a lot of ensembles that can pull off, I think, what you're going to be doing in 2013.
Yeah.
The first one, of course, is the DuSable to Obama, Chicago's Black Metropolis.
Exactly.
Which you won an Emmy
for?
for?
Composing production Emmy for it, yeah.
Wow. And that was in 2010 is when this was used on a WTTW?
Exactly.
As a soundtrack?
Yeah, the soundtrack for the documentary, which was phenomenal. I mean, they're great. Barbara Allen and Dan Andrews, the producers of the documentary, just total phenomenal to work with.
How did the whole soundtrack come about? Because you're going to be performing this with the chamber ensemble.
Yes, Chicago Jazz Philharmonic Chamber Ensemble.
February 16th.
Exactly.
At the DuSable.
No. At Logan Theater.
Logan Theater. I'm sorry. Yeah. And then also, which is on the University of Chicago.
Exactly.
Then also on March 10th at Governor State University.
Exactly.
You're going to be doing two different shows of the same with the same ensemble.
Exactly.
Tell us a little bit about how the whole soundtrack came about.
Well, it's the funny thing. I was part of another documentary that Dan Andrews put together. I was one of the featured artists where WTGW just followed me around for a couple months and tried to find an interesting story. I thought most of it was boring, but that was called Beauty Rises, and so Dan produced it, and Barbara was the editor.
So you might have been one of the first reality TV
probably
stars here.
I think so.
Yeah.
But it was 4 artists of Illinois and how we struggle to make our art valuable, something like that. Well, it was an awesome project. But in the process, I never met Barbara, and I think at one of the ending events, she came up to me and said, "You're my composer." I'm like, who is this lady? And then I get this call to come to an event. It was kind of last minute, and I said, well, I can't come. My wife's working. I have to bring my 4 kids. And I think my youngest was just a couple months, maybe 8, 9 months,
Oh, geez.
No, you got to be there. You got to be there. So I'm there, and then, it's a viewing of like the first rough of the footage. And then they said, and our composer, Orbert Davis. And I'm, wait a minute, they haven't asked me yet. So I kind of stand up. So I went to Dan and Barbara. I said, so I'm really doing this, aren't I? But
that's when you got to agree to it, right?
That's when I agree.
Right?
But they didn't have to just twist my arm. The story is phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, it's more than just a history of Black Chicago. It's a history of Chicago, from basically going back to Civil War time. And they would not allow me to see any footage before I composed.
Really?
Just they're geniuses. I have to say it softly. But anyway, and what happened was they told me the stories, pivotal points of history, and said, just compose. What picture it in your mind, which is the way I compose anyway. I generally don't look at actual film and say I'm trained to do that. As far as the frames and the cues and all that. But they edited the film around the music, which is phenomenal because the music at many times tell the story. As you watch, the music brings the emotion, and it's so basically I was able to. Just compose all the music I love, from ragtime to bebop to some R&B even, and a little tribute to Shaka Khan in there, and some Chicago sound, Chicago soul, and lots of jazz. But the fun part was the theme, which is actually sort of African-inspired John Williams movie music.
Wow.
But it worked. We had to get DuSable, the fact that he was the first resident of Chicago and from a French African heritage, all the way to President Obama, who also has an African and American heritage.
Sure.
So by putting the dots together, I came up with this sort of a superhero theme. But it was fun. The whole project was incredible. So I'm very honored that in February we get to take that music and rearrange it for the live stage.
Now, this is the first time this is going to be performed live.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah, but so much of the process in the studio, I wrote a lot of music, but at the same time, I depended on the musicians to improvise as well. I mean, especially when we approached the 1960s, I basically wanted to let the music tell the ironic story of how internally the music is very calming, but externally civil rights was going on. So there's this conflict, and I basically just told the musicians that, and we turned the red light on and started recording. And from R.E. Brown and Ernie Adams and Stuart Miller and Jeremy Kahn, we created this, sort of a Miles Davis, the Great Quintet type free jazz. And so that was fun. So that we plan to do that again in February. So because of the success of the documentary, we decided to put together a soundtrack CD of the music from it, which did very well because the documentary went national.
Oh, sure.
In that year, and particularly around Black History Month, we hope it can live every year.
Absolutely.